Welcome to the BattlePod. It's featuring Dion Lunsford and my partner, as always, Connor. It's going to be significantly less so of Connor today. He's a little bit under the weather with his voice, but he is here in spirit and physically. We're back here in episode 3, doing our usual thing here for WWBC Commanders. Got a lot to get to today. So we're just going to kind of get back into it. And I'm going to do the best I can with just me here. But Connor will help me along, filtering through the slides and stuff like that. So, well, first things first, we had a lot of postseason events, 2 or 3 of them. We finished our season with our top 16 championship finalists that played into a tournament to determine the WWBC champion. We had a grinder for the non-top 16 players, so anybody who played in any events were eligible for that tournament to play also for points that will go toward the season for season 2. We also had a fantasy bracket event invitational for any players who won a fantasy bracket. Throughout the season, we put those guys together into a tournament, distributed points throughout for there. So we're going to go through the results of all these events, as well as some talk about what's here to come for season 2. That's going to be actually starting here in a couple of days now. So welcome back. It's good to be back to talk more WWBC. So I think we're going to go into the fantasy bracket event first. Like I said, players here were winners of a fantasy bracket that they created. They had the best bracket in one of the events. We had Yarboa, Gianos, Connor, and Deanna B. Format was essentially the Commander standard one, but I added gambits. I mentioned in the last pod, I just wanted to add some flair to some of these postseason formats. Whether or not they were fair or, more balanced, it's whatever. We do what we want here. So, like I said, I added both gambits to these sets with the regular Commander stuff. And one thing I like to see was that everybody picked a different Commander. The only person you couldn't pick was Joachim for here. And there was 4 people. We mentioned before that we did have 5 tracking fantasy bracket events for which Gianos won 2 of. So we only had 4 distinct winners. Turned out for a very even tournament. So we had Yarboa on Newberg playing Gianos on Lee, Connor on Vulcan, and Deanna B on McCready. I believe my guesses were Deanna B taking this thing against Yarboa in the finals. As you can see here, it did not work out that way. Best of 3 all the way throughout with best of 5 finals. So we had Yarboa taking on Gianos, winning that, and Connor beating Deanna B. So meeting in the, what will essentially be the winners finals. Gianos beating Deanna B in a Lee McCready game in 3 games, which is a pretty surprising upset. Also, even though, they're both really good players, but Gianos is definitely pretty solid with Lee. So good job getting that win. Ended up hitting Yarboa, who came down from the match against Connor in a 2-0 Vulcan Newberg game. Also a little bit surprising to me, to be honest, but it goes pretty close now that I think about it. I'm kind of curious how those games went. I'm not gonna ask Connor to talk because obviously you know where he's at right now, but maybe I'll go for a little bit of nods here. Do you have any of those games on your page? One or both? Oh, okay. So Connor does have all of his games on his YouTube under Sofa Man, right? Under Sofa Man. So yeah, definitely check those out if you can. So he was able to beat Yarboa's Newberg in 2 games. Yarboa went down to losers to play against Gianos, for which Gianos Lee took down the Newberg. That one's a little bit more surprising to me. The Deanna B. Yarboa was kind of just a dream, but that easily could have happened. But I don't think I would have had Gianos and Connor playing in the finals. Just for whatever reasons, Gambit's involved, stuff like that. But Connor was able to take it down. Best of 5, so first of 3 victories. And Connor was able to take it 3-1 with his Vulcan. So it's the first WWBC Vulcan victory. It's not an actual event win, but it is a tournament win nonetheless, and it's pretty solid to see. So that was our fantasy bracket event. I believe we had our points breakdown was pretty simple for this. We had 30 going to the winner, 20 to second place, 15 to third, and 10 to fourth. So all 4 players got points, as will be consistent throughout season 2 as well. At the end of that, the point breakdown I think will be exactly the same. We should have 8 tournament winners at that point, fantasy bracket winners, and we'll probably do something like give 5 points for 5th through 8th, to be honest, just to keep it consistent and not do anything different. So congrats to Connor on that. Next up, we're going to go into the grinder. So I didn't really have any other names for this. It was just a postseason, end-of-season tournament that I just dubbed the grinder. It just kind of made sense for players who weren't in that top 16 echelon playing for the title of champion, but at the same time giving points to maybe put themselves in a position to make a run out the gates for season 2. So format here, base set and Colony Wars. It's mostly everything, most things, if not everything, from the top row and the middle row, except for missions. Yes, I believe that's accurate, with both Gambit sets. So another pretty chaotic format. No events in this one, don't believe. Yeah, so this one was pretty crazy. No Yoakum or McCready for this one. So I was really curious to see how a tournament like this would have turned out. I was very excited to see it, even if there was some gambits and stuff. I know it's not too much to fish on, but I was very excited to see this. So the numbers for this tournament, as far as picks, we have 32 players, which is pretty cool. I wish we had everybody who had played, but 32 is a really, really clean number, so that was fine. We had 7 Newberg players, 5 Nandi players, 5 Vulcan players, 7 Lee players, and 8 Walsh players. Obviously, we took 2 commanders out of the running here. There's 2 people who easily dominated 80% of the entire format for the entire 8 tournament season. So it was very cool to see these numbers. Very, very balanced. I really loved it going out of the gates before any games were played. And the winner was Sheridan. Tab down, show more. Sorry. So Sheridan ended up winning this one with Newberg. It was a Newberg mirror, him and Castan, and a very intriguing top 8 that involved Markbot finishing in 3rd, making the run with a 7-2 record. We did something a little bit different here to shape up and preview what was going to potentially happen in season 2. We had best of 1s all the way through the first round up into the top 8. So there wasn't really any best of 3 set play until the players made top 8. We pushed this one back to top 16. So it was a lot more games played, more players got the experience, more set play. And that's something that we will be previewing in season 2 that we'll talk about later. But to see Markbot here, 7-2, he ended up losing round 1 to Divine Admiral Lee himself, Phil Meister, in the first round, and then made the run all the way back to actually play him again in the top 4 of losers, as you see here. And he did get his revenge. And unfortunately, was not able to get back to get to grand finals, but still ridiculous making that run. So Phil Meister in 4th on Lee. We got Lido on Lee as well. Raka on Walsh. Paul Solomon on Lee. And Wachowanek on Walsh. So there were a lot of Lees, really good conversion rates for that. What's that? That's three leads in the top 8. There were 7 in the entire tournament. So a really solid conversion rate from them. Another fun fact about the winner, Sheridan, is that he did come from the losers bracket. He lost the winners finals set against Caston, stayed there in losers finals where he met Markbot, was able to beat him, get his punches ticket for a rematch, beat Caston 3-0 to reset the bracket and bring Caston in the losers, and then win another set 3-0. So they played 6 games in a row. And I think the winners final set was 2-1. So like they played 9 games of Newburgh Mirror almost consecutively, and Sheridan was able to come out on top overall. So congrats to both of them, especially Sheridan for taking it down, earning himself 40 points towards season 2. We did the rest of the point breakdown for this tournament is as follows. 35 for second, 30 for third, 25 for fourth, 20 for top 6, 15 for top 8, 10 for the top 12, and 5 for top 16. So we did let this go down to the top 16 players. So everybody there will get a head start. You'll see that 16, I mean, at 5 points, looks like no joke, but if you recall our pod for how close the points were going into the top 16 playoff, you'll see that those points very well could and may matter. So congratulations to them. What else we got here? That brings us to the big one, the championship. WWBC Circuit Season 1 Championship Finals. Format that I dubbed myself. I'm still working on it. There definitely is not a format, I don't think, that exists that everybody has a fair shot in. But I was trying to find something that was close. I tried really hard. So the format for this one was all 3 base sets, heroes, fleets, second year promos, United Command, and United Assault, not United Alliance, Stellar Allies, Frontier promos, and Frontier events with the command decks. I didn't know what events that I wanted in here, because I did know that if somebody were to pick somebody else, I think the events really help everybody, but in my opinion, help some of the lower tier commanders maybe kind of ramp up and get back in the game. Of course, depending on when they come out, of course, but I couldn't decide if I wanted regular events or frontier events, but I just chose the lesser. I think me and Connor agreed that frontier promos is a bit less volatile. So we went with the frontier events. So I'm still working on this format. Connor's dubbed it the Luns format. I think that's my last name, which I thought was pretty cool. I just want to figure out exactly what I want it to be. But yeah, so this is what we went with. Since the top 16 players played most of the season with Yoakum, all the season with Yoakum being viable, I did not omit Yoakum for this event. And the picks came out just almost exactly as I thought they would. So 16 players. We'll name off those players here in a bit. We did already go with them before, but we'll do it again. But 16 players. We had 1 player choose Newburgh. 1 player chose Lee. Leaving 14 players left, split between 2 commanders. So that'd be 2 McCready's and 12 Yoakums. It's 12 big J's. I don't really know what to say about that. But what did we expect, right? So let's go and run through the list again, just to name the players who were in this tournament. You had the matchups, typical 16-man bracket. So usually we'll know how this goes: 1 versus 16, 8 versus 9, yada yada yada. So we had Aldrin at the number 1 seed on Yoakum playing against Darklighter. Slavic on Yoakum going up against Bork and Beans Newberg. Corey Bear's Yoakum against Politis' Yoakum. Penguin Army's McCready against CJK Flyers Yoakum. Roland Paz Yoakum against Ninja Nin's Yoakum. Cisco Alvarez's Yoakum against Yarboa's Yoakum. Sebas Ripper's Yoakum versus Connors Lee. Juan Carles's Yoakum against Zim's McCready. So those are our matchups here. I made the very first round best of one because of the same justification that I had most of the regular season's prelim round being best of one when Yoakum was involved. Although that still will probably just be the case just because there are so many players in the first rounds. Just to give players a chance to see to shake up the bracket if Yoakum could lose in a best of one to kind of shake things up. That's really the only reason that I made the first round best of one. I did have a lot of reservations about it. I wanted to maybe put it out there to give people a chance to pick anybody else and see what happens. And I mean, whether it was because of what I did or not, we did get a little bit of shakeup. We did have one Connor on Lee winning his first round match against Sebas Ripper 1-0. I believe that was the only one. Not that there was a chance for many upsets. I don't really count McCready beating Yoakum as an upset. I was really hoping Bork and Bees would get a game over the Newbergs, or over the Yoakums. Sorry. And we'll go to the top there. Bork and Beans did lose the Slavic. Random fun fact here, I did test with both of these players against the other matchup just to kind of help. I was trying to see, I wasn't trying to help Bork and Beans, but I played the matchup a little bit. Played Newberg against Slavic's J. Played Yoakum against Bork and Beans Newberg. And it didn't feel good. I had some close games on the Newberg side. But Bork did get me a couple of times, so I did kind of have a little hope for him in that best of one state. That didn't work out very well. The top 8 shook out. Need a full bracket. Sorry. That works too. Top full bracket to the top 8. Yeah, so they played a few rounds here. It was best of 3 after the best of one prelim round. Best of 3 every time after that, and then best of 5 winners and losers finals. The bracket is toggled and folded, so it's doing that weird glitch thing. So don't ignore the losers finals being on the wrong side. But this ended up being the top 8. Although, I mean, they were still McCready. We know that McCready is definitely a top-tier commander. I was impressed to see both Zim and Penguin Army advancing with McCready, just taking down an army of Yoakums in their wake. Most times, and it ended up being some 2-1s, but there were a couple of 2-0s as well. At the end of the day, in the losers' top 4, the two McCreadys did end up finding each other. PA and Zim both played each other in what I assume was a pretty epic and probably swift set of Commander's Star Realms, where Zim went on to take it, playing Ralampa in the losers finals, which is best of 5. Again, please ignore that they're swapped. It was best of 5 losers finals. Where Zim took that set 3-2. I mean, obviously it's been so long now, but I think I would have loved to see all 5 of those games. Just indicative of how the season is going as a whole between these two commanders and Zim in general. So Zim ended up taking on Aldrin, who cakewalked through the entire thing pretty much against outside of CJK Flyer, beating him 2-1, and then beating Ralampa 3-0 in the winners final in a matchup of the first and second ranked players in the entire league. And then the grand finals, Aldrin versus Zim. This one appears to not have been close, judging from the reactions and the post-game conversations between both players in Discord. Little fact about this match, I remember getting my report ready, hyping up my finals post as I always do. This guy versus this guy. Oh no. Okay. So maybe one of them was close, although Aldrin likes to play his scores in. I don't prefer them be in. I don't care that they're in, but as long as the score is right, it's fine. But Aldrin is definitely one of a few players who definitely make sure they put the scores in here. Also, I'm pretty sure he always does the maximum damage, so I'm pretty sure that these scores are probably indicative of just doing everything that you can. Classic dodgeball style. These do not look very good. There's only one that looks good. Oh, buddy. But back to my point about the post. I was making my post ready. Aldrin versus Zim. Let's go. My usual stuff. I swear it couldn't have been 15 minutes. I also recall there being a tournament going on in the in-app that Zim was also playing in. I think I was playing in it as well. And within like 15 minutes, their set was over. Aldrin reported the set 4-0, and I was like, excuse me? So, yeah, Aldrin took down the grand finals literally same day, same hour, it felt like. So Aldrin is our champion for WWBC Season 1. Took it down. So congrats to him. On Joachim, the guy who's taken him all the way here. With the exception of one WWBC victory in the Honey Buns format where he was able to win with Nandi. So, yeah, congrats to him there. That was insane. We had postseason points for this tournament as well. These points go on to Season 2. Oh, that's fair. I thought we were going to do something different, but this makes it better too. This is a much better transition. So we've got a slightly different outlook for my Season 2 point rankings that I'll be posting at the end of every event. This list that you see here has all the players who got points in their postseason events, whether it be the grinder for the non-top 16 players, the top 16 finalist players, the fantasy bracket winner of the invitational, and then I also gave points to the best bracket for the championship. I did not give points for the non-16 grinder. That was never a part of the plan, but I am glad for the people who did do those brackets. Please continue to do those brackets. And the winner of that one for the top 16 championship fantasy bracket was Dustov, Dustov, commonly confused with Dusto, but there's a V at the end of that. Totally different player, totally different person. He did win that, getting first place, snatching it from myself. That would be the second time that I personally have gotten robbed in a fantasy bracket. We had the same amount of points, but in the same way that I lost to Yarboa, I think back in the Event 4 or Event 5, I gave the tiebreaker to the most correct picks, just to be fair. And Dustov had one better pick than I did. So I gave it to him. So congratulations, Dustov. I could easily, did a first place, second place thing, but that wasn't the original plan. There can only be one, and Dustov is the one. So congrats to him. So here's our list here. As we scroll down just a little bit, first place for the championship, top 16, I gave 150 points to. We will see if that is too much of a head start. I mean, you got to reward the champion some type of way. But I was trying to make the points make sense, and I think I did an okay job from the top 16 to the non-top 16 as far as the point threshold, basically making them ladder off of each other. But 150 points to Aldrin, 125 to second place Zim, 100 to the Brawlin' Pa, 90 for Penguin Army, 80 for Slavic and CJK Flyer, 70 for Ninjinen and Darklighter. There was 40 plus. Did everybody get 5 or 10? I forget. I guess you got those points. Seabus Ripper and Cisco on 50 points. Politis on 50. Corey Bear, Juan Carlos, Bork and Beans, and Sheridan on 40. And that's going to be the top 16. There'll be a little bit of gaps that you saw me skip over. We'll go back to those right now, actually. So we have Yarboa and Connor that I intentionally skipped there because they did come off with points from other tournaments. So Connor finished in the top 12, which should have been, what was that, 50? Yeah, 50 with Cisco, Seabus, and Politis. But he did win the fantasy bracket tournament, which gave him an additional 30 points, which puts him at a bit of more of a head start than he normally would have had, with 80 points total. So there's that, and then Yarboa got a few points from her fantasy bracket invitational as well. On top of her, I think she finished top 16 with 40, which makes sense. 40 plus 15 is 55. So yes. And so that ladder is on down. That should be everybody that I mentioned in the top 16 and non-top 16 tournaments. There's Dust Off in the middle at number 20. No particular reason on the seedings as far as the same amount of points. I just did the same system that I did in season 1. And you'll see we have 32 total players who are just going to come around with a head start. 32 players not named Deion Lunsford. So I got some work to do. So that was that. Let's see. That's going to be the bow pretty much on our season 1. So congrats once again to Connor winning the fantasy bracket tournament. Sheridan on the crazy 6-0 comeback run in the grand finals. Also went 15 and 3 in total games in that tournament. Like, one of my favorite things to note about the final, people who win, and even to a degree, like maybe in the top 4, like they play a lot of games. Like, there's a pretty big investment to go far, and we know people keep track of their win percentages and their total games played on their apps. Like, 18 games to play in a single tournament is a pretty big investment to me. So, and to have done so is pretty impressive, and to win 15 out of the 18 is pretty insane. So good job to him. And then Aldrin for taking it down. I feel like we've talked about Aldrin a lot, and I got a feeling that we're not going to stop talking about Aldrin going forward. So congrats to Aldrin for being the champ, number 1 going into the season, as it should be. And I'm sure he's definitely got a target on his back. So with that being said, we're going to get to some season 2 stuff, but we did have a kind of summer, I guess, like a little break as we were waiting for the non-top 16 grinders to end, because top 16, the finals ended so fast. There was a lot of air to fill. And one thing that we had been talking about, Connor and I, ever since we started this thing, event 1 and 2, was maybe trying to do some like little team event of some sort, like not exactly dodgeball, but something where it was, I think even Bork and Beans mentioned in the past about doing some kind of 7v7 commander thing, but like that was more so like one team of commanders versus another team of commanders, like 7Js versus 7Ms, stuff like that, which is cool in its own right. But one thing we had talked about from the get-go that never really got any traction was doing a 7v7 either side league if there was enough interest, or at least doing an exhibition for such a format where there's a team of seven players, 7 different commanders that gets drafted by two captains. And they just go at it. They just play best of 1 for essentially a best of 49 set. And that's something that we found ourselves with the time to do. We checked to see if there was interest. There was a lot of candidates for captains. Connor jumped at the chance to be captain number 1. And captain number 2, I mean, there was a lot of different people I could have picked. I just went with the number 1 player for WWBC. Also took into account that he does play 2 different commanders pretty well. that being Yoakum and Nandi. So I was definitely interested to see what would happen in a world where he drafted players. So we did do that while we were waiting. And we got 2 teams. Just give me one moment. Jesus. All right. Yeah, so we did have 2 teams where Connor drafted and then Aldrin drafted. Connor got a team of himself playing Lee, Seaba's Ripper, who he assigned 92, JL on Vulcan, Zim 108 on McCready, Penguin Army on Newberg, Ninjinen on Yoakum, and he gave the Walsh role to Wachawanek, for which Aldrin gave himself Yoakum, rightfully so. He got the first pick in this draft. There, he knocked out his 90 pick quickly, giving it to Hypaspis, which is a pretty good pick. Some people argue about the number 1 pick, but I mean, who knows what Connor does if Aldrin doesn't pick Hypaspis, who we revere as the best 90, even with Aldrin winning Honey Buns. So that was pretty cool. He assigned Newberg to Borkin Beans, Walsh to DG3. He gave his Lee to Rip. Politis got the McCready pick, and he drafted little me to play Vulcan. So we squared off with each other. I think we did the draft this past Thursday, and we started playing immediately. Do we play the same day or the next day? Yeah, I don't know, something like that. The games were done really, really fast. We I'm pretty sure 44, 45 of the games were literally done within 36 hours. I was expecting this to be a weekend thing, to be honest, or even longer. You know how stuff goes. But we finished this very, very quickly. So what do we have up here? You have the commander table here of just the matchups of the best of 49. Nothing really to see here. The only thing that pops up to me is, the Yoakums, Ninji, and Aldrin. We do have the players who did their thing. Aldrin went 7-0 on his Yoakum side. He did not lose a game. Politis went 6-1 on McCready. Only lost to the other team's Newberg, so that would have been, it was Newberg Penguin Army. Borkin Beans went 6-1 as well as my team's Newberg, Aldrin's team's Newberg. DG3 went 4-3. I went 3-4, which is the exact record I was looking for. We did make some team names. Connor's team name was, is it Quade? Quad. Okay. Quad. Kwade. Vogels. Quad Vogels. I believe that had some Dutch inspiration. Yes. And then Aldrin's team name. I can't even find it. It was basically a long acronym that just really stood for, if we lose, it's Aldrin's fault, and if we win, it's Dion's. That's literally what it is. So if you look at those, if you put those letters together, that's what that was in the beginning, the first letter of each thing. That was kind of weird, but we won. I like to think that I had a role in it, but who knows? So we were able to win. But that was his team name, which I was a little sad about. But I do think that in this type of format, if it was closer, you definitely kind of look at one of the Vulcan sets for sure. And I was glad to take 3 games in the way that I did. So did get to go 3-4 there. Our Lee Rip went 3-4, and Hypaspis trying to do his best, pulling his weight. I'm sure he has some troubles. Went 1-6 on his end. Whereas on Team Connor, Connor himself struggling a little bit. Did go 2-5 in his 7 games. Wachawanek going 4-3, pulling his weight as Walsh. Ninji Nin, the Anchor Yoakum, 4-3, taking losses to Team Aldrin's Yoakum. So he lost to Mirror, lost to McCready, and lost to Newberg, which was pretty good for our end. I know we were pretty hype in our chat. I don't know if Connor's team had a chat anywhere or anything like that, but we did. All of our players were in Facebook, so we did make a little Facebook chat. I believe Aldrin mentioned at one point that the teams easily could have just been Team Facebook and Team Discord. So we did have that going on, but we were really hyped to see our Newberg take on their Yoakum. Speaking of Newberg, Penguin Army went 2-5. Zim went 3-4. Jay went 2-5 on Vulcan. And then Sebas Ripper on 90 also went 2-5. So obviously it's a bit of math to add up, but in total, Team Aldrin did win the best of 49, 30 games to 19. I don't want to. I mean, I got Connor next to me here, so I don't really want to crap on him too hard. But it wasn't really close coming out the gates. I remember we were up as much as 6-1, which isn't really that crazy coming out the rip. But as I got a little bit into it, Connor was texting me like, "Hey, do we need to cut this off? Do we need to stop play? I don't know." But I was personally glad to be on the winning team. But it was a very fun thing to do. I think the chat kind of had a lot to do with it for me. Our chat personally was really, really crazy. But then as the league got a little bit more insurmountable, and then as we got closer and closer to that that 25, that winning number, the chat kind of got a little bit ridiculous, where we weren't even talking about the set anymore because we knew we won. But it was pretty fun to do. I would consider doing it again. Did you have fun doing the event, Connor? That's going to be a nod from Connor. So we will definitely be doing it again. Aldrin has expressed interest in doing a league himself. I don't know how serious he is about that, but if he doesn't, I'm personally planning on just whipping out exhibitions every now and then. I don't know if we have enough committed commander players to do, like, we can definitely do like a 4 or 5 team thing, in my opinion, maybe. But I do like the 2 team dynamic. We actually had enough players to do a 3rd team, and I almost did do like when we did this on 2 teams, I almost got a 3rd captain together to draft a 3rd team. So like we could probably do something like that next time. But if there is this quick to crank out, like, I mean, I don't really care to really do a league, but I did like the exhibition part of it, just doing it. Some players involved in this one did express maybe doing a best 2 out of 3 of it. I like the best of 1. I think there's enough games, especially with all the players. They're usually playing in WWBC. I think all 14 of these players here are really, really well versed in commanders. So, I mean, it's not indicative of what player is better than the other player, but I think these are some pretty competitive games. So that was fun to do. That was really a lot of fun. Would do again. And yeah, so that brings us to putting a wrap up on season 1, talking about what we did in between, and now we are into season 2 stuff. So, changes going into season 2. Not too much right now. Still got best of 1 in the early rounds. So round 1, round 2, you'll be playing best of 1s against whoever you play against. I just don't want to do best of 3 with 50 plus players. it just takes a long time, and like I'm glad people get their games done, but there are a fair few bit of people who, life happens, but sometimes games take a really long time. So still got best of ones going early. Again, we did move best of 3 play back from top 8 to the top 16. So now once you reach that top 16 mark, you will be able to play best of 3. I am more than happy to keep track of starting at 8 different games, 8 different matchups of best of 3 and going onward, rather than doing 24, having to keep track of 24 plus best of 3 starting off from the beginning of the tournament. So we got that going for us. That means in losers, let's say if we have a 51 person tournament, there'll be 2 rounds in the first in the winner side, and then obviously if you go into losers, you'll have an extra round to win. So if you do end up going to losers early to get to that top 16 mark, you will have to win a 3rd game, whereas somebody in the winner's side will only have to win 2 to get to the top 16 best of 3. Unless you got a bye in the winner's side, then you really only have to win 1 set usually, or 1 best of 1, and you're in, or 2 rather. I don't know. Actually, it depends on how the bracket looks, depending on how many players. But so that's what we're doing. So best of 3 is something that we didn't do last season. We only had, besides event 1 of last season, where everything was best of 3. Now it's best of 3 to top 16, whereas everything from season 1 was best of 3 starting at top 8. So it took you a little bit longer to get to that best of 3 play. So I hope players like that. I'm looking forward to it. It seemed to work really, really well in the top 16 grinder. So that's what we got going. The other change is best of 5 winners finals and losers finals. We only had best of 5 in the grand finals of each of the 8 regular season events last season. No particular thing. There were no issues or anything. I just want to see more games played, to be honest. So I kind of like the dynamic of there being a first couple rounds best of 1, and then 2 rounds best of 3, and then basically play best of 5 if you get that far. For the winners and losers finals, that seemed to work really well in the top 16 championship. So I kind of took that from that. And top grand finals will still be best of 5. Not doing best of 7 of that. I'll save the best of 7 prestige for the top 16 championship. But that mean, as you guys know, with that one, if you reset the bracket, you might be playing a best of 10. So that works for that one as well. So the best of 5 grand finals will still be the same, but best of 5 losers finals and winners finals now. So just to recap again, if I haven't done so already, which I'm sure I have. So best of 1 until top 16. Once you get the top 16, you're playing best of 3 now. And then if you make it to the winners finals or the losers finals, that's best of 5. And then you just stay with best of 5 going into the grand final. So that's what we're doing for that. Any other little subtle changes? Might be doing a little bit more, I don't want to say discipline, but keeping tabs on like those first round games. There have been a lot of issues with we don't want to I don't think we rush players too much on trying to finish on their pace of play. I did something toward the end of the season where I did basically 5-day updates where I just kind of just denote what games are ongoing on a 5-day basis. So day 5, I'll do an update. Day 10, I'll do an update. The only rounds I'm really worried about are those first 2 rounds. We had a lot of rounds in the best of 1 stages, which kind of goes into my reasoning for not having best of 3 that early. Where I would do a 5-day update, and half of the people are playing best 2 out of 3s, but we still have people in round 1. I think 5 days is a little long. So I'm not gonna do anything do any game losses or anything like that after those 5 days, but just gonna be a little bit more I don't know the word, but kind of Hawkeyeing more on those first rounds, first and second rounds, best of one, hoping to get more of those done within those first 5 days. Other than that, everything else is relatively the same. Not changing any point structures for the regular season WWBC. The exact same point structure, exact same fantasy bracket format. Yeah, and that's what we got going in there. So with that, we'll get into some of the things to look forward to, and we'll go with the first event. The first event of season 1. It's going to be a classic. Some people say boring. I call it the Commander Standard because it's what we play on the Thursday in-app every single Thursday in the app. Wise Wizards put that as the Commander's format, so I think that's what people use as their standard, so I just call it standard. That doesn't mean it's the best thing, doesn't mean it's the best template. I just call it the Commander Standard format. So, a couple reasons why we went with this with the first event, which I guess leads to something that I forgot to mention with the changes, is that there's no Yoakum in this format. We did this format in event 1 of season 1, but Yoakum was allowed. We also hadn't done commander locks yet. But we're trying to fish out. We're trying to start to see what the meta looks like in a world with no Yoakum. We had one tournament, not WWBC, that Aldrin did. It was this exact same format with no Yoakum, and it was really fun. It seemed to be really, really even. A lot more matchups happened because there was an absence of Yoakum. I believe a Newberg deck won that one. I think it was a Newberg mirror in the finals, actually. So we don't have a lot of data on it. So we're just trying to get some more data and just some more tournaments with no Yoakum involved. Just because we saw what happens when Yoakum's in it. If Yoakum's in the tournament, he should and most likely will win. The only instance where that didn't happen was the Nandi Buns in Event 7 of Season 1. However, there was not a Yoakum in that Grand Finals, and I don't want to discount Aldrin's ability to play against Yoakums, but a part of me wants to say that if a Yoakum made it on that other side, that we'd be having a different conversation. So winning 7 out of 8 events last season, we don't want to do that this season. So we're trying to have as little Yoakum as possible this season, and just to see if it turns out good, see what the players think about it. I'm certainly a proponent of no Yoakum in everything. Like, if there's a format where it seems like things are more fair, which 90 Buns seems to be, you got stuff like that, I don't mind him being in that, but it's gotten pretty ridiculous in my opinion. So I'm sorry, Yoakum mains out there. Time to find a secondary. Here we go. So we'll be doing this. So we've already got 51 players signed up. I believe probably about 90% of everybody from season 1. I have seen a little bit of new blood in. I've been trying really hard to get some more in. Really trying to hit that 64 player mark one of these times. No particular reason. It's just a number that kind of increases the number of rounds by one. It makes it a bigger tournament. It makes it more prestigious. I just want to see 64 plus one time. But 51, I'm certainly glad to see that there. And we'll see who comes out on top in that one. Other things to come in Season 2 is that we're going to have 3 events where it's color-coded, basically. We're going to have what I call the Commander Summit. So we're going to have a blue Commander Summit, we're going to have a red Commander Summit, and we're going to have a green Commander Summit. Is that right? Yes, that's right. So you will only be permitted to use a commander of whatever color it is. So obviously being the blue Commander Summit, it'll be Newberg, Nandi, and or Vulcan that you have choices to pick on. So we're not just omitting Yoakum straight up from tournaments. We're kind of closing metagames to see what people do in those environments. I picked all of these formats myself. They're not perfect, but I made a list of what affinities myself. Connor did as well. Most of these are mostly on me though. As far as the formats, I dubbed what I thought were fairly even formats for the commanders involved. So that's what we're gonna do. So this format's gonna be pretty cool. It's gonna be event 2. This is the blue one. So blue commanders only. You'll notice in custom fields that you'll only be able to pick one of those 3 commanders. So we'll have blue, and then what's the next one that we have? In event 4, we'll have the red commander summit. Only red commanders. So that's going to be Walsh, Lee, and Vulcan again. So another chance to pick Vulcan, guys. Vulcan was criminally underpicked, rightfully so, because other commanders were available to pick, but at the same time it was atrocious how many times Vulcan got picked. So let's give her a little bit more love this season, guys. So we got this format here. I didn't read out the last one, so I won't read it here, but you can see it on the screen. Tell me what you think. Tell us what you think, either in the comments or our Discord that we mentioned that we have on the Galactic Summit Discord for Star Realms, a community-based Discord. We're in the competitive area of organized play under WWBC Commanders, so you can definitely comment there if you have any questions. So yeah, this is the Red Commander Summit. I named those commanders already. The other ones will not be available to pick, so obviously non-reds, your Nandis, your Newbergs. There's 6 commanders, so it's hard to pick these other guys sometimes. Who's the other one? Oh shoot! All right, yeah. Play all Paul is what Connor has whispered to me. So that's going to be McCready. For those of you who don't know the Joko and the play all Paul, maybe you understand the play all, but maybe not the play all Paul. You can find that comment made in an article that we now have published on the Mega Holland website. 2 of the 5 commanders did not have articles written about them, Lee being one of them. And Connor was asked by multiple people and basically just voted the man to make the article. And he does have an article on that he did make for the Lee commander. So definitely check that out on Mega Holland and tell us what you think. So yeah, so that's going to be event 4. So we talked about event 1, event 2, event 4, and then event 6 is going to be the Green Commander Summit. So it's going to be your Walshes, your Newbergs, and your Play All Pauls. This format is probably the most aggressive because these green guys are the most aggressive. I think it's the one format that I put the first year promos in. I might have put that in blue, I don't remember. But this is going to be the format for it. I expect it to be just ridiculously bloodbathy, and we'll see what happens. So once again, just showing that, Yoakum's probably not very healthy, but we're trying other things. Not having other commanders be able to be played either. So Yoakum will not be the only person kind of being left out of the loop in certain places. We will not have a yellow commander summit for a couple reasons. One, we couldn't fit it in this season, and 2, at the first we didn't think it would be worth doing. I've had some second thoughts about that, but maybe you'll see a yellow commander summit in season 3. I don't know, but it won't be in here. You can do the math and figure out those 3 yellow commanders who would be in contention for that tournament. So yeah, so that's event 1, 2, 4, and 6. We're not going to go through every single event, but we will go through one more that we have going, and that's going to be the first of 2 formats that Yoakum is actually available in. And the first one that we're about to mention is mostly because he's the only commander available. It's a format that Connor is dubbing Oops All Yoakum, which I thought he changed already, but he hasn't done that yet. I have it on Yoakum only. He's been calling it Oops All Yoakum, which I kind of like that. It's probably what we're going to go in. I don't even know if it'll even fit in there, to be honest. It has like a cap limit. Okay. Yes, all the way down. Oops All Yoakum. There we go. Honestly, we could have picked any format, right? So it didn't really matter. I kind of went with, I just picked this. We did actually have, I think, either one and or both gambits in. Me and Connor did a couple games of testing. It didn't take very long to figure out that was not very fun. Although a bunch of Yoakum mirrors also probably isn't going to be very fun. So we took out the gambit. So there's going to be no gambits for this, but every player will have to play Yoakum. So it's a cool series that I think I might start doing if should we be fortunate enough to keep cranking these seasons out. So like maybe in season 3 you might find a Oops All Lee or a Oops All Nandi. So we'll start out with the Yoakum one mostly because again there's going to be a pretty intentional lack of Yoakum. But this is one I think is pretty fair. Everybody's gonna have the same footing for the most part. Some people who are more experienced might have a little bit of an advantage, but we'll see how it turns out. So that is gonna be that there. So yeah, we don't really have anything else on my docket here. I don't think we were gonna do a fantasy bracket for the event 1. However, registration is still going on for that. We're going to cut that off tomorrow, probably around this time if you're watching it today. And then we'll have fantasy brackets available to be done. I'll post in the Discord and on Facebook alike to let you guys know that you guys can do those fantasy brackets. Definitely do those. As always, they're really fun to do, and there is incentive to do them now. So definitely check out those fantasy brackets. If you're looking at this and haven't seen it, here back to event 1. This is the page. You can sign in here. We're at 51 players, like I said. We're still taking people up until tomorrow, and then I'm going to shut down the registration, and then we're going to get seating. So I'll be seating people according to the seating list that I showed you guys before, which also brings me to one last point too I didn't mention when it was here. You'll see that I do have the commander names next to these players, something I didn't have in season 1. So like we plan to be keeping track of every player's records with different commanders. To just another thing to keep track of, and I think it wasn't really the reason, but now that we started doing these 7v7 exhibitions, maybe they'll help a captain pick a player based on maybe their performance with the commander. Who knows? I don't know, but yeah, something I thought would be really, really cool. It's just keeping track of players and their performance with a certain commander, so we can find out who's doing the best with McCready, who's doing the best with Lee, who's doing the best with Vulcan. So that's what we got going on here. Those are the top 32 players, I think it was 32 or 35 that you'll see. They'll be the top 32 or 35 Cs, however many players are at 32. Yes, 32. And then everybody else will literally just go on after that. I'll tell you right now, I'm randomizing the bracket. I do it like once every day. Not that it matters how often I do it. I just do it for fun. But I'll randomize it one last time before I seed it. And then I'm literally just going to seed it 1 through 32, the top 32. And then everybody else will just be where they are. And then I'm going to fire the bracket. So that's who you'll be playing against, wherever you'll see it. If you're seeing the bracket now, obviously your registration is still going. That is not how the bracket will look when the tournament starts. Not even close. I probably will have randomized it again. So, anything else we're missing here? All right, Connor says no. So I think we're good here. Thanks for tuning in for the Battle Podcast, episode 3. And good luck, players, in event 1. We'll see you next time.